Hey, welcome to Cashrules, another episode of Cashrules. My name is Nick, and we are with the man, the myth, the legend, Nick Gilmore. How you doing, my man?
Foley, I am doing great. I missed you, man.
Yeah, it's been a while. We haven't been able to connect on here, and I think this is a really good. I mean, not to jump right into it, but I noticed I said to you off camera that today's episode is brought to you by Hoodies and Backwards Caps. So here you go. So anybody that has a company called Hoodies Backwards Caps, then we are your people. Yeah, it's been a while. It's been I think it was 2 or 3 weeks, but I don't think it has anything to do with anything other than the fact that there's just busy schedules, and I think that just kind of speaks to the authenticity of the podcast, really. If you're able to, to do it every day, and I get that makes sense in some cases, but this is a podcast that's very grassroots in the sense that it's two guys talking real estate and talking all things business, and sometimes things get busy. So why don't you share with our listeners? I thought when you were talking about it off camera today, Nick, I thought it would might be an interesting talking point to share with our listeners, why we weren't able to connect on several different occasions. It wasn't through lack of effort. I would say that our producer extraordinaire, myself and yourself, we were always trying to make things work, but people got busy and doing their thing. So we're back today, and I'm excited to get into what we're going to get into today. But why don't you share with our audience, Nick, what you've been up to, my man?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, right? Because all three of us have so much going on, and I've got 3 deals actually at the moment that are still, we're still trying to close them. And the thing about a deal is, number one, there's a great saying: have 10 deals going for every 1 deal you want to close. And I firmly believe in that. But it doesn't just you decide, okay, I'm going to do this, and then it happens. There's so from finish to start, or finish to the time you decide you want to go after it, there's so many things that need to be done, and all the due diligence and all the paperwork and all this other stuff. So when you decide you're going to go after a deal, it's okay, now the work starts, right? It's not just okay, you do it, you get the money, and then you buy it, or you acquire it, or whatever. That's when you really dig your heels in and start to, do your due diligence and dig into the numbers and dig into the business or the property or the building or whatever, and peel back the layers of the onion and find out if it stinks or not.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, I don't want to get into, you can, it's up to you. There are more deals, but how was that process for you for the deals that you were looking to close here?
I mean, it was good. You always find stuff. You're always nothing is perfect ever in a deal. So if you think that you're going to go into, looking at a property or looking at a business or an acquisition or whatever, and it's going to be absolutely perfect and everything is going to work out how you expect it to, then you'll never, ever buy anything. So you need to understand, number one, expect things to not go right. Okay. You're going to find things that are wrong. And that's good, because nothing is perfect, okay? So you're going to find these things. You just need to, have your checklist. Okay, if I do find this, is it a deal breaker? Yes or no? If the answer is no, how do we stick handle and navigate this, right? And then you've got to do this process, and this takes a long time for 1 deal, let alone 3 deals. Plus, you got to meet people. Plus, there's other, partners involved. So it's a lengthy process, especially when you're running other businesses. Right. And we're super grassroots, super hands-on. And it's something that, we're not at a level where we have this massive mergers and acquisitions team where they can dissect these deals. We're right in the grass with looking at these and looking at the numbers and putting the time in and, investing our time to see if, it's something we want to pursue. And, fortunately, we have the time to do that, but unfortunately, it takes a lot of our time, and, it is what it is.
Let me ask you this, Nick. What is there a measuring template or a measuring stick that I know you work very closely with your brother in the Gilmore Group when it looks at these deals? So 2-part question. 1, do you have something like that that's kind of a box check, you got to check the boxes? And 2, out of the 3 deals that you were looking to close, how many did you end up, and how many were just no?
So the checklist thing, I always had one, but it was more of a mental one for myself. I didn't necessarily have a physical sheet where I could go through and say, okay, is this, what it should be? Is this not what it should be? So I never had that actually until you introduced me to the idea of a checklist. And I believe it was for something else, but we took it and transposed it on like an acquisition level or an acquisition and purchases application. So I took the idea that you had introduced to me and then used it for that. So Jordan and I do have like a little, I would say kind of a draft checklist of things we go through. And out of the 3 deals that we looked at, all 3, we ended up going for all 3.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. Hey, one more question on that, Nick. This is interesting stuff for me. And people ask, when you do the podcast and things like that, like I do the podcast because I like you, you're my friend and things, but I find it interesting. It's good learning for me. And I always find that, it's one of those things where if I find it interesting and I have a question, I know my audience or our audience, your audience, the audience is going to look at this being like, hey, that's something I want to find out. So I always find that when you're listening to podcasts, and I know that you do and I do, you want to make sure that you're asking the question. So all that lead up for me to forget what I was going to ask you. Oh, this is what it is. Have you ever had a deal where your gut is saying this is going to be good, but the numbers just aren't adding up? Yeah. So let's call out of the business your brother, and I know Jordan well. Your brother is the numbers guy as far as like the head guy. Not devaluing your efforts on numbers, Nick. I know you're a smart man. But I feel like you're a lot more gut driven and he's a lot more head driven when it comes to making the numbers work and things like that. I know that because we've kicked some tires on some things together in the past with outside of that store. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, my question for you is, have you ever had a feeling where the numbers just aren't looking great on paper, but the gut says do it, and then did you, and what was the result?
Yeah. So two instances come to mind where the numbers didn't add up in either deal. One, we didn't go after, and it's a good thing we didn't go after. And the other one we did, and it was a good thing we did. My gut told me on both deals they were good deals. But the thing about me is, and my dad actually taught me this, believe it or not, because when I started the shop in Harrowsmith, and I was like, him and I were chatting about it, and I'm like, what if this never, like, this was maybe like 4 or 5 years in, and I'm like, what if this never would have worked? Like what would you do, or what would I do, or what would what would we do? And he says, well, we just would have made it work. Mm-hmm. So the thing about business, if you're an entrepreneur, is most times you can make it work if it's on a small enough scale. Okay. I'm not talking about if you're like massively expanding, nationwide on some type of a franchise growth strategy. But if you're looking at, if it's a small business or you're starting, one store, whatever, you're doing, going out on your own, most times you can make it and you can make it work. Okay. So when you truly believe that and understand that, it liberates you to go after what you want. Because what's the worst that can happen? You're not going to die. So who gives a shit?
It's amazing what you can accomplish when failure isn't an option, right?
Yeah.
And I remember a story not too long ago 6 years ago now, when I was cycling across the country. There was a young man that did it in the summer before, leading up to, I was leaving in that April, and that summer he did it, got hit and actually got hit by a car and passed away. And I remember my sister asking me, she's like, well, what if you can't do it? And I said, well, I'm going to do it. And she's like, yeah, but like, what if you can't? Like, I'm like, I will crawl, I will carry my bike, I will take 7 months if I have to, but I'm going to do it. Yeah. And she looked at me, and I remember her saying, she's like, yeah, that's really, really intense. And I said, well, that's the thing, that's the mentality that I have to have, because if I didn't think, there wasn't a doubt in my mind, no matter how hairy it got, no matter all this, sad circumstance before me, there wasn't a doubt in my mind that it was going to be accomplished, right? And if you have that business mentality, and I've tried to transition that into my business, and I think you made a really good point there. Next point, though, that I wanted to share with you is that I read a great article by Colin Powell, not by him, he's passed away now, but about him. He was the former Secretary of State for the United States, and he had this analysis where he would always look at, he said, you don't need anything less or anything more than 40% and nothing less than 70%. So if you have, nothing less than 40%, nothing more than 70% to make a decision. He said anything beyond 70%, you have analysis paralysis. And I wanted to get your intake on that, Nick. I wanted to get your thoughts on that, because so often people are just like, they don't know, they don't want to pull, they don't want to pull the trigger on a decision, especially in business or personal, because they're just like trying to get as much information as you can. And this man, Secretary of State, a historic general or historic military career, and he said you don't need anything more than 40%, and you need and nothing more than 40, or nothing less than 40%, and nothing more than 70%. I wanted to get your take on something like that.
Meaning the information gathered on making a decision?
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I would agree with that. I mean, 70 that's quite a bit of information. And typically, if you have that much information on something, whatever you're doing, be it a business, be it a piece of real estate, you know most of what's going on. And typically when you know that much, you can piece together the rest, pretty close to what the information or what the numbers actually are. So I would agree with that. And analysis or paralysis by analysis, and I love that saying. It's what kills so many deals. And it's a fucking excuse too. Here's the other thing, because you get people who just want they're like, oh, I'm in the game. Yeah, I'm looking at rental properties. I'm doing this, but I haven't bought a fucking thing because the numbers don't work. Well, the numbers don't work because you are letting the numbers not work. Sometimes you got to pick your fucking balls out of your ass and understand that you got to take a risk. You have to take a risk. And it's not easy. And it makes you feel sick to your stomach. But you do it when you feel like it's the right decision. And, I'm going to just segue into this. I know that it's kind of coming down the pipe on the questions anyways, but the numbers don't add up. A lot of the time the numbers don't add up, or a property will just break even, or sometimes the property will, it'll lose some money. Like I've been in that situation. You've been in that situation where we've owned real estate, but you're putting money into it every month to pay the mortgage or to make sure all the bills are paid. And people say, well, how can that be a good investment? It's a good investment because of two reasons. One, the asset's appreciating, right? So it's becoming more valuable. And two, you've got somebody paying 90 or 95% of the mortgage anyways. And that's free money. You got to manage it, and you got to manage the property and blah, blah, blah. But that's work that you would do for anything because money's not free. So yes, you're putting a little bit in, but ultimately the investment and the back end value is there.
Well, and we're going to get into that, Nick. And I think that there's lots to say with it, but you're right. I mean, I think that you got to run. Money's not free, and I like that. You got to run it like a business, right? Like, I mean, it's not lost on me that I purchased a property during this big housing boom for $80,000 less than the asking price, the original asking price for it. Right now, the property, was it performing great at the beginning? No, but I've had the property now since October, and I tell you what, it's performing a heck of a lot better now than it was. Right. And it's because I run it as a business, and all I do is I think about it and I look at it and I look at how I'm going to be able to do things better. What can I do to have it performing better? And then I don't think about it, or then I don't think about anything else. I think about that, try to get it performing, and I think, like you said, if you have all this analysis and you're afraid to pull the trigger, then you're always just going to be analyzing deals. And that's okay if you're not, or if you are acting on something. And I think you said this to me when I was going through it, because before I bought the property, I was talking to you about different things. And you're like, man, you're going to have like 10 to 30 deals that are not going to work out to get that one. And then once you start to get it, it's like that hockey stick analogy where it's straight line and then it shoots up, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, this has been a good beginning to the podcast. Let's get into some question time. So we have some good questions that were brought to us, Nick, and I want to get into a few of these ones right away. And again, for our listeners, you can check us out on Spotify. You can check us out on Apple iPad or iPods or iPods podcasts.
And we're in fucking 2005, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, exactly. Anywhere that you get that you see iPads, anywhere that you see podcasts, you can check this out. Speaking is hard, especially when you're hosting a show. Okay, so here are a couple of questions that we've received from our listeners, and the reason why I was saying that when I was fumbling over that mess was we want our listeners to send us some messages, and I know people directly message Nick a lot about it, which is great, and we want these questions because I feel like it. Hopefully, it's the only reason why we do this podcast is to help and to serve our audience, and so we really appreciate what you have to say, and thank you for listening. We're grateful for it. So, what are the qualities of a successful person? This is such a loaded question, but I'm going to give you the reins on this one, Nick. What are the qualities of a successful person?
So, I was talking with my brother yesterday about this, and then I'm like, fuck, we got to talk about this on the podcast. So, someone who's successful possesses 3 qualities. And without one of these, I feel it will hinder your potential as an entrepreneur or a successful person in business. And the 3 things are as follows. Number 1, okay, you need to be hardworking. Okay, first and foremost, before anything, you have to be a hard worker. If you're not a hard worker, then you're fucked. Okay. Number 2, you need to be smart. Okay. And I don't mean you need to be Albert Einstein, but I mean you need to understand and know what you don't know, because you can be smart without having all this knowledge. Just understand what you don't know and where to get it. Okay. So the definition of intelligence to me is being able to, the ability to learn. It's not so much what you know, but it's the ability to learn things. And then number 3 is you need to have a personality. Okay. And this is kind of, this is my own take on it. And, agree or disagree. I don't really give a rat's ass, but you need to have a personality in business, because people have to want to talk to you and want to network with you and want to do deals with you and want to be around you. Right. But if you have no personality and you're just Mr. fucking robot behind a computer typing on the thing, then people will say, I don't want to deal with that fucking dweeb. They want to deal with movers and shakers and people who are exciting and people who are, doing things and fun. Right. Now, I don't mean getting drunk at, business meetings and being an idiot, but you have to have personality. You have to be smart. And number 1, first and foremost, be a hard worker. And here's the other thing, by the way, I'm getting fucking roasted right now. Like for the last 2 weeks on Twitter, because somebody posted this crazy website about how I was about that article again. The one I wrote with, where it says, don't expect to get paid for all your time. When you're a business owner, starting a business, working for yourself. But unfortunately, everybody missed the fucking point of the article. So people are coming on here and just absolutely well, you're telling people to work for free and hard work, and this grind mentality is so 1990s. And I'm thinking in my head, this is exactly why you have nothing, because you're already making excuses why you shouldn't work hard. Right. And they're saying, well, putting in hours, right? Putting in hours isn't just working. And that's not what I'm saying. When I'm saying putting in 80 and 90 hours a week, number 1, they're productive hours. They're not just being their hours. And 80 and 90 hours a week working, it doesn't mean you're sitting in your office chair typing on a computer 90 hours a week. Maybe you're driving and you're thinking about work, and you're making a call about a deal, or you're at the grocery store and you're texting on your phone about, something that's gone down at the store or something that you need to do. So these are the types of things that I'm saying. When you're working all the time. And that all of those hours put together are that 80, 90, 100-hour weeks. And I'm not saying this is sustainable for a lifetime, because most successful entrepreneurs have this, like, they'll go up and when they're working towards something, it's like, and they work. And then you come down, right? You level out, you rest, you recoup, and then back up again. And these are the things that, you got to understand your body and understand how your mind works and understand how you're able to successfully do these things, but keep your mind in check, keep your health together, and, be a good leader and be around for your team.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I will say, and it's a feather in your cap, Nick, is that you're really good at just being like, this is what I do. This is what's worked for me. And this is what, if you want to have that level, then this is what I do. Do what I do if you want. But if you don't, you're always really good at just being like, you'll say something. And then if someone's like, wow, no, I'm not going to do that. Okay, that's okay. Like, there's other deals or there's other things. And you're very much in tune with the fact that not everybody subscribes to the same notion. But I'm really glad that you actually said that, because people are looking at it being like, oh, 80 hours, 90 hours. Like, you're not constantly, like you said, sitting there and being on your computer, but it's thinking about it, right? And those hours count. They're banked hours, right? It's having a text message while you're picking up, toilet paper or paper towel or whatever, being like, yeah, I gotta do this, or I want to, responding to somebody on a deal that you're making or what's happening at the business, right? So it's just consistently being around, others and working, just having it on top of mind is what you're really saying there, and I think that's great. Yeah, absolutely. So, but do what works for you. Like 89 hours that's good for you. People sometimes people like to go 9 to 5. That's great. That's fine. That's fine. If that's what you want to do, right? But as an entrepreneur, there's every entrepreneur that I know, they'll tell you that very, very seldom are the hours set, right? So you're going to be thinking about it even when you're not thinking about it. You're thinking about it. So,
and if you want to be like everybody else, do what everybody else does. There's a reason why everybody who fucking works 9 to 5 has the fucking one house and the 2 cars and an RRSP account with X amount of fucking dollars in it, and they're not going to retire till they're 65. Why? Because they do the same fucking shit that everyone else does. Mm-hmm. Like, it's so simple to me. And I just want, I do this to help, right? Like, because I've got other business. It's not like I'm making $1 million from this podcast, or you're making $1 million from this podcast or our social media. We're doing it because we want to help people from what we've learned. Yeah. And I don't get why there's just so many excuses out there that people want to make of why they don't want to fucking have more. Like, if you want to be different, if you want to play in the NHL, you need to fucking play hockey every fucking day of your life until you make it. And then play hockey every fucking day of your life to stay there. You know this. You played high-level hockey. If you want to be a high-level athlete, you need to do things differently. There's other things involved, obviously, but ultimately, you need to work harder than everybody else. It's the same in fucking business. If you want to be the best in business, you got to work harder than everybody else. And if you're not willing to do that, then get the fuck off the fucking playing field.
Next question. How do you justify spending the amount of money investors are on properties when the rents and math doesn't add up?
I think that's a good question for you.
Well, yeah, and I was just kind of thinking, it's interesting, and we'll both jump in here, but one of the things that I'll say is a lot of people get caught up in cap rate, right? It's what the revenue that you're generating based on how much you spent on it. And so a lot of the times, and I know you touched upon this in our opening there, but a lot of the times people will look at it and be like, oh, the cap rate's only 3 or 2 or 1%. It's not a good investment. One of the things that I think that investors need to recognize, and especially if you're trying to get into the game, is there 2 things. Number one, is it operating at its highest and best use? And so what I mean by that is, does the property that you're looking to buy yes, it may not be performing well now, but is it a big property? And if it is, or you have, time or not time, but space to be able to build an ensuite or or build onto it, or maybe you're able to redo the basement that's not done, or maybe you're able to add like a bunkhouse in the back that you're able to generate revenue with, or things like that. So that when I'm looking at property, I don't get so caught up in cap rate. I'm looking at its highest and best use. Is it operating at its best potential? I just bought a home, or I bought a property a few months ago, and that was the first question I asked myself. Two questions I asked myself: is it operating with its best potential? And the answer to that question is absolutely not. And the second thing I asked myself was, is it going to appreciate over time? I got it for a price that worked for me, and the reality is that I had enough people in there, or there's my renters were in there, that they were going to cover most of the mortgage and most of my expenses. For me, that was good enough until I could get that property running to where I needed to do. So when I looked at the HABU, highest and best use, I looked at it, the potential of can I add more doors, and that's like either more rooms or more things on the property. Could I generate revenue with that? Could I generate revenue with the garages? Whatever it wasn't operating at its best value. So I bought it. So I think that people shouldn't get so caught up in the cap rate. That's one thing for sure. But there's all kinds of other things that need to be considered with this kind of stuff. So that's just my insight. I know you've got lots of insight, Nick. So I'll throw it over to you. But the appreciation value, I knew I know that in the future it's going to appreciate with time. But it's like anything; it's an investment. Just because I bought it a few months ago, I don't expect to have all kinds of money now because of that. But in the future, it'll perform well. So those are two things I look at: appreciation value and highest and best use. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I always use the saying, fast money goes fast, but you're never going to get rich overnight, and nothing is ever going to make you money very quickly. Nothing that's worth doing, that's not going to put you in jail. So I think you pretty well covered it, man. Like, basically, highest and best use. I love that. And I love it in more ways than one. Just in the real estate, in properties, when you're looking at the properties, but also, even in business, right? So the highest and best use of employees, right? Because ultimately, being a boss or a leader, you're a servant to your customers and you're a servant to your employees. Good leaders aren't sitting at the top with their feet on the desk, barking orders at people. Good leaders are a servant to the employees, and how can they optimize and remove barriers for these employees, and for to be able to operate at their highest and best value. That's what a good leader does. So I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent a little bit just because you reminded me of that, but finding the highest and best use for anything, be it properties, be it in your business, be it whatever, be it yourself, right? Because I'm not good at everything, but what's my highest and best use? Put myself there, and then find who can help me do the stuff that I'm not so good at, right? But ultimately, and I just want to throw this out here one last time, as a leader or a business owner or whatever, an entrepreneur, you're a servant to your employees and your customers.
Good. Next question. So you have $800,000 to spend right now, and your goal is to acquire as many units as possible. What do you buy?
So I know what I'd buy. What would you buy?
Well, I mean, I would look at it and see how I could service the debt, basically. So I could cut that up and I could buy 3 or 4 single properties, or I could buy a multi-unit. I would probably look into a multi-unit is what I would do, because that generates usually some pretty good revenue. They tend to appreciate if you're buying a triplex or a double. And then I would probably buy a triplex, and then I would look to get into a double. So I'd probably buy a triplex and a double unit. Or not double. What am I?
Duplex.
A duplex. Sorry, a double unit. That's what I'd look at. How about you?
We're not doing any more 9 a.m. You can't talk at this time.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Yeah, exactly.
So for me, in Canada, they have what's called a CMHC guaranteed loan, and basically what that is the government, or CMHC, which is an organization that it will guarantee your mortgage So it will say to RBC or TD or whoever gives you the mortgage, I'm going to guarantee Nick Gilmore's property that he's buying. And if he defaults, then we'll cover it. So that gives the bank more, it gives the bank the ability to go higher on their loan to value, meaning the bank will lend you more money because they have this CMHC entity guaranteeing my mortgage. Okay. And then there's a similar thing in the US as well. But I'm not as versed in that, so I won't touch on it. But basically, what I would do if I had $800,000, I would find a multi-unit that was worth about $5 million or just over $5 million. Because I know that CMHC will go up to 85% loan to value on a multi-unit residential property, meaning I only need 15% down. 15% of 5.3 million is roughly $800,000. Now you got to have your closing costs and stuff like that, but it really helps you get the most bang for your 800,000, and it puts you into an awesome multi-unit property. That's going to pay down quick and allow you to leverage and buy more quickly.
Yeah, and when you say leverage, can you speak a little bit about that, Nick?
Yeah, so as you build equity in the property, meaning less mortgage and you own more of it, okay? So the difference between what you owe in the mortgage and the value of the property is your equity. And that equity, typically, you're able to use a portion of it to purchase more property, or you can take money out against that and use it to buy another property. Now, if you take that money out of the property or the equity out of the property, then your mortgage payment goes up because the bank has lent you that money. But the tenants who occupy the building pay you rent, which actually services that new debt. So it doesn't cost you anything to take that equity out. Your cash flow goes down. Again, goes back to you have cash flow or growth, what I always say. So your cash flow goes down, but you buy another property, so the growth goes up. So you're able to take money out of that property and buy another property. And that is what I consider and what is leveraging.
Well, and it's a really well said on that point, Nick, because that's what a lot of people that are in real estate, as far as investors go or do, is they will pull the money, the equity out of one home. You just did this recently. We talked about it on the podcast, right? And you took that money out of the couple of the ones that you consolidated, and then you used the leverage, and were able to buy more properties. And that's the point. If you're in the game, you could certainly take the money out because you take it out as a debt, so there's no tax on it, and just have a nice little windfall. But a lot of people that are in investing when it comes to real estate are looking at it like, okay, I'm going to take this money out. I got a couple $100,000 in equity. I can take out 80, 90, 100 grand. I'm going to dump that into another property, because money that's staying in your bank, as we know, especially with the sense that, or with the amount of inflation, is money that you're losing, right? So the less time you have it in your bank, the better it is. Dump it into assets, and you'll be happy that you did. So good. We got a new unit, or sorry, new unit. We got a new section in our podcast that we're going to introduce to you all today. And so this is where we're going to talk about stocks. So this is going to be an interesting, this is a really interesting kind of section of our podcast, or because I'm interested in this kind of stuff. I don't know a lot about stocks. I know that you're more of a stock person. So let the stock section begin. So here at the huge conglomerate of Cashrules, we have a stock picks of the week, where I'm going to show Nick the stock pick that we have for him, and go ahead, put it up on the screen there. And Nick is going to talk about his stock pick of the week, which is this week is TELUS Corporation on the Toronto Stock Exchange. It's simply T. Go ahead, Nick.
So basically, I like TELUS. I'm a customer of TELUS, and there's first and foremost, when I look at a stock, I always look at, is it something I use? Is it a company that I subscribe to, right? Is it something that I in my everyday life that I consume? Do I understand it? That's another thing. You need to understand what you invest in. If you don't, get out, right? So do I understand it? Yes. Do I understand every little bit of it? No. But I understand basically what they do. Then you look at the numbers, right? So you look at the stock price, 32.01. That was what it was trading at day's end yesterday, $32.01 Canadian. And then basically you want to look at something I look at. Number one is it's a blue chip stock, which means it pays a dividend. Okay, it's a 4.09% dividend, which means that's pretty good. If you can get from a blue chip stock, if you can get like a 4% dividend, that's decent, right? A dividend means that the stock pays you on a monthly, a quarterly, or an annually basis. They'll give you money back on the money based on the money that you invest. Another thing that I like to look at is the price earnings ratio. And basically what that is how much the stock trades as a multiple of what it earns. So the higher the price earnings ratio means the more confidence investors have paying more for that company. Okay. So the higher the price earnings ratio, the more confidence people have that the stock is going to increase in value. So if the price earnings ratio is low, it means it's trading closer to what it's earning. But the higher that number goes, it means the more confidence that an investor has paying more for the stock because they believe that it's going to go higher. So TELUS, that's my pick of the week. Take it or leave it. I like it.
What do you what number are you looking for the earning ratio? Like what's I saw that it was 26.13. What would be a number that you want to see it at, Nick?
I mean, 15 is decent. 15 is like, I think what they say is kind of average. Anything below that is low, and that could indicate a good deal, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It means that it could be priced low. Okay, but these things are indicators. If it's high, it might mean there's a chance that it could go up, and there's more investor confidence in that stock. So if it's something around 15, I believe, and don't quote me because I am just a blue collar worker. I'm not a three-piece suit wearing guy, but I think 15 for a price earnings ratio is pretty standard. And yeah.
So we won't normally get into this weekly. Like we'll talk about Nick's stock pick of the week, but because this is such a new new segment for the show, my question for you, Nick, is how often do you trade, and how often are you looking at how your portfolio in the stock market is performing?
Several times a day. So I'm always looking at it. I have reminders on my phone, or I have notifications on my phone of different stocks I invest in. I have alerts when a stock will go below or above a certain price, or when it's different things will happen. Okay, I have these notifications set up in my discount brokerage account, and I'm always looking at it because, like anything, if you're making money from it, money's not free, right? So I'm exchanging work and an effort to make money. Okay, so you need to pay attention, and trust me, things in the stock. I'm no professional. Okay, so it's not my primary income that I'm earning from this, but I know enough about it that I can do it, and I certainly pay a lot of attention to it. And anybody who is going out and wants to do this, I've never preached that I'm a professional at anything, but I've realized success at real estate and at stocks and at different things because I've had the right mentors and the right people around me that I could ask the questions. And that's why I do this. So, I'm not saying that you need to listen to what I say, but I certainly have a group of people around me who I'm able to reach out to and have them answer questions if I need.
What are three things that you would do? So number one is you surround yourself with mentors. But if you want to get into the stock game, what are three things that you would suggest our listeners do?
Number one, open a practice account. So you can do this at any discount brokerage. You can do it at Google or Yahoo Finance. open a practice account and do it for like 6 months. So you get like 100,000 fake dollars and then you just start investing, right? Read. So number one, open a practice account. Okay. Do this. I'm not fucking around. Number two, educate yourself. Read. Understand what the different metrics of a stock are, what the numbers mean. You know, how to read a chart, how to read a stock chart, how to understand the numbers, how to understand, you know, all of this language that they use, how you can consume this information as efficiently as possible, because there's like pages and pages and pages and pages and pages of stock reports and information on these things, and it's impossible to read it all. So you need to know how to get the information that's relevant to you, that can give you the information you need in order to make a decision to invest in these stocks. Okay. So number one, open a practice account. Number two, educate yourself and read. And then number three, start slow. Start slow. You don't need to blow your whole entire savings on this, but just invest a little bit, right? Diversify your portfolio, you know, kind of goes hand in hand with that. So you don't just invest everything in oil or everything in tech or everything in the banks, right? Like you need to diversify and protect yourself, hedge yourself against, you know, a downturn in one market that might be an uptick in another. Right. So understanding these different things in these different metrics, these different numbers, how to analyze a stock, you know, I think that will set you up for success. It certainly helped me, but you're definitely a good mentor or somebody you can ask questions to is key as well.
Yeah, no, I like that. It's really sound advice there, Nick. We're giving our listeners some sound advice, because I feel like, you know, the mentor for anything. I know you're you're a huge believer in mentors and mentorships, and as am I. So no, that's some great advice. So this is a new segment for the show that I think is going to serve our listeners well. I just wanted to get a little bit of a backstory as to Nick's stock tip of the week, or stock pick of the week, which is this week being in February, last week of February, first day of March, actually, March 1st, he picked TELUS to be the stock pick of the week. So go out there and spend all your money on. Just joking. If you're listening, you would not do that. But that's his can't miss stock pick of the week. And when I say can't miss, I am completely being facetious. I'm completely joking, because we are not here to recommend you do anything. We're just trying to give you as much value and as much education as we possibly can. Nick's stock pick of the week was TELUS. All right, so this brings us to the last portion of our show that I really enjoy talking about. And we got one question for you, Nick. And here's the question for rant time. It is going to be this. Are you ready for it?
I think so.
All right, here it is. It is simple, one question, and it's going to be, what does it mean to be all in? What does that mean? I want you to talk about it. What does it mean to be all in?
So, I love talking about this. We touch on it all the time, okay? And it makes me sick to my stomach when I see people going in to start a business or want to be an entrepreneur or want to be whatever, and they start penciling themselves in for days off and time off and this, that, and the other thing. And I'm not talking about like, you can't do that. But if you want to be at the elite level, and if you want to be at the best of your game and at the top, then you need to work harder than everybody around you. Okay? So when I'm all in, I'm all fucking in. I am all my time, all my resources, all my effort, all my everything. Everything is going towards the success of whatever I'm doing. So when I opened this store 10 years ago, I opened it and I worked 7 days a week. I worked 12 hours a day, and I didn't take a day off except for Christmas and Thanksgiving. Okay. And we did that for, 7 years, and then we started to close a few more days. But literally, I'm not exaggerating. I was there working and doing other stuff. So I was there in the store, cutting all the meat, meeting the customers, doing all the other shit, but also looking at real estate deals, educating myself, taking my real estate course, taking my mortgage broker course, doing all this other stuff too in the back, because I was just building myself to be the best that I could. I was putting all of my resources, time, and efforts to the success of my business. And that's what people will, they'll look at this now and say, oh, well, who are you to be talking about fucking stocks? Or who are you to be talking about real estate? Well, when you were fucking out to dinner with your in-laws 15 fucking times last year, I was fucking here at midnight reading a fucking course on mortgages. And you were out getting drunk with fucking Uncle Bob, right? So I'm the guy who was putting in the time to get better. And that's what gives me the ability to talk about it now. Because for 10 years, and we say this all the time, and Gary Vee says it, I said nothing. All I did was consume. Even before that, 15 years, I've been consuming. So now I feel as though I'm able to start sharing little tidbits to help out people who I think it can benefit. Back to the question, what is all in? If you are not willing to put everything you've got, all your time, all your efforts, all your money, all your everything into the success of something, then you will never be at the elite level, be it business, be it as an athlete, be it whatever you want to succeed at. You will not be at the elite level. You'll swim around with the rest of the other fucking dickheads in the mid-level nonsense who nobody cares about.
I'm Nick Foley. He's Nick Gilmore. This is Cash Rules.